No one visited Citadel Asterion unless they absolutely had to. The station floated alone in the violet glow of the giant planet Nerith, its massive ring stretching nearly 80 kilometers from end to end. From space it looked elegant, a silver halo wrapped around a world of swirling lavender storms. Inside, it was something else entirely. Every corridor had reinforced bulkheads. Every observation deck had emergency blast shutters. Every public square contained hidden security drones waiting behind decorative panels. Not because the station expected war. Because it expected panic. Citadel Asterion had become the Council's experimental crossroads, the only place where herbivores, omnivores, scavengers, insectoid hive species, aquatic delegates, and apex predators all attempted to coexist under one roof. Most days, they barely managed. Chief Administrator Tarek Voss hadn't slept in 21 standard hours. The first crisis had been a diplomatic argument over atmospheric humidity. The second involved a merchant insisting another species' perfume constituted biological warfare. The third had required evacuating an entire marketplace after someone mistakenly announced that a juvenile predator had escaped. It hadn't. Someone had simply seen a maintenance robot moving quickly. Still, 300 civilians had run screaming. Tarek rubbed the ridge between his eyes. "I need a vacation." His assistant looked up from a glowing datapad. "You requested one." "I know. The Council denied it." "I know. They wrote, your stress level demonstrates your value to the station." Tarek stared at the ceiling. "I dislike everyone." A soft chime interrupted his misery. Incoming diplomatic shuttle. He sighed. "Who now?" His assistant checked the manifest. "Terran Union." Tarek groaned. "Humans. Is that bad?" "I don't know. That was the problem. Every official report about humans contradicted every other report. Some claimed they were fragile mammals that broke bones by falling down stairs. Others insisted they wrestled apex predators for recreation. One report stated humans consumed poison voluntarily. Another insisted they kept venomous animals as household companions. One ambassador had reportedly adopted an orphan Death World predator because. Tarek searched his memory. It looked lonely. None of it made sense. Humans rarely followed predictable behavioral models. Administrators hated unpredictable behavioral models. The shuttle eased into Dock 7 with a whisper of compressed atmosphere. Its hull carried the blue and white insignia of the Terran Union. Nothing flashy. Nothing threatening. Just practical. The boarding ramp lowered. 3 security officers emerged first. Not in heavy armor. Just clean Navy uniforms. Alert. Professional. Then came the ambassador. Commander-turned-diplomat Nathan Hale. He was taller than Tarek expected. Broad shoulders. Dark brown hair touched with silver at the temples. Simple charcoal diplomatic coat. No visible weapons. No unnecessary decorations. His calm expression somehow made him seem even larger. He looked around the station with open curiosity instead of caution. That alone unsettled Tarek. The administrator stepped forward. "Ambassador Hale." Nathan smiled warmly. "Administrator Voss." He offered a handshake. Tarek hesitated. Human greeting customs remained confusing. He extended his upper hand awkwardly. Nathan adjusted instantly, matching the gesture without making the administrator feel embarrassed. A small thing. But Tarek noticed. "I hope your journey was comfortable." Nathan laughed softly. "I've had worse. You traveled through 3 pirate sectors." "I know. They missed. Tarek wasn't sure whether that qualified as reassurance. As they walked toward customs, Nathan kept glancing around. Beautiful station. Tarek blinked. No visitor had ever called Asterion beautiful. Complicated. Efficient. Overcrowded. Dangerous. Yes. Beautiful? Never. It has practical architecture. Nathan chuckled. My wife says that's exactly what I say when I don't want to compliment someone's decorating. Before Tarek could answer, a shrill alarm echoed through the corridor. Not loud. Local. Close. Several security officers froze. Then came shouting. No. Stop him. Grab the tether. Tarek's stomach dropped. No. The sound of claws striking polished metal echoed from the adjoining passage. Fast. Too fast. His assistant whispered the words every administrator dreaded. The cub. Around the corner exploded a blur of black scales. The juvenile Dravik sprinted into the docking concourse like living lightning. His name was Rin. Only 8 months old. Already the size of a large wolf. Coal-black scales shimmered under the station lights. Golden eyes wide with excitement. 4 powerful legs. A long balancing tail. Rows of curved white teeth. Dravoks ranked among the most formidable predator species in known space. Adults could outrun military transports over short distances. Juveniles had absolutely no understanding of personal space. Behind him ran his exhausted handler. Rin. The cub ignored him. He skidded around a corner. Stopped. His nose twitched. Then he looked directly at Nathan. Everything became still. Tarek's heart sank. No sudden movements, he whispered. Nathan nodded. Understood. The cub approached. Slowly. Curiously. Sniffing the unfamiliar scent. His tail wagged once. Twice. Then. One of the security drones activated overhead with a sharp electronic chirp. The sudden noise startled everyone. Especially Rin. The cub flinched violently. Nathan instinctively lifted one hand. Wrong movement. Wrong moment. Instinct took over. The young predator lunged. His jaws clamped around Nathan's forearm. Blood splashed across the polished floor. Every alarm in Dock 7 activated simultaneously. For one endless second. Nobody moved. The docking bay fell into absolute silence except for the piercing station alarms. Administrator Tarek Voss felt every nightmare scenario explode through his mind at once. A human ambassador has been attacked. The Council will demand accountability. Earth will demand justice. The Dravik clans will refuse punishment. Someone will overreact. Someone always overreacts. Around the dock, security drones descended from hidden ceiling compartments, their targeting lights immediately locking onto the young predator. Red beams danced across Rin's black scales. Threat detected. Engage restraint protocol. The cub froze. His golden eyes widened. He still hadn't released the human's arm. The handler reached for his stun control. Don't. Another guard drew an electrolance. Stand back. The nearest diplomats scrambled behind cargo crates. Someone shouted. Protect the ambassador. Another yelled. Kill the animal before it bites deeper. Nathan Hale finally reacted. Not by pulling away. Not by shouting. Not by striking the cub. Instead, He looked down at the small predator clinging to his arm. Blood trickled steadily down his sleeve. The bite hurt. Very badly. But something about the cub's body language caught his attention. This wasn't aggression. The cub wasn't growling. His ears were flat. His tail had tucked beneath him. His breathing had become frantic. The youngster looked terrified. Nathan spoke quietly. "Hey." The cub twitched. "Easy there, little guy." No one else moved. "You're scared." The words were calm. Gentle. Almost kind. The cub blinked. Nathan slowly relaxed his shoulders despite the pain. "I know." Another heartbeat passed. "You can let go now." The cub's jaws opened instantly. Rin stumbled backward so quickly he nearly fell over his own feet. His entire body trembled. He stared at the blood covering Nathan's sleeve. His breathing became short, uneven little gasps. Administrator Tarek rushed forward. "Medical." He grabbed Nathan's wrist. "Do not move." The handler lunged toward the cub. But Nathan lifted his uninjured hand. "Wait." Everyone stopped. "Ambassador." "Wait." There was something in his voice that made even the security drones pause. The cub backed himself against the wall. His scales, glossy black only moments before, had turned a pale gray. Tarek had seen that color exactly twice. Both times. Young Dravox had believed they were about to die. The handler whispered. "Oh no." Nathan frowned. "What's wrong with him?" Tarek stared. "Wrong?" "Yes." "The cub." "The cub?" Nathan looked genuinely confused. "He's terrified." Tarek blinked. "He attacked you." "I noticed." "You are bleeding." Nathan looked down. "Huh." He flexed his fingers. "Still works." The medic arriving at full speed nearly collapsed hearing that. The medical team surrounded Nathan immediately. "Sit." "No." "You've been bitten." "I know." "Sit." Nathan sighed dramatically. "You people are very bossy." The senior physician ignored him. "Possible venom. Unknown bacteria. Muscle damage. Tissue collapse." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Sounds exciting." "No." The doctor snapped. "It sounds fatal." Meanwhile, nobody noticed the cub. Nobody. Except Nathan. Rin had curled himself into the corner. Head down. Tail wrapped tightly around his body. He wasn't watching the guards. He wasn't watching his handler. He wasn't even watching the drones. He couldn't stop staring at the blood dripping from Nathan's fingertips. The translator collar around his neck finally activated. Its tiny speaker produced a trembling voice. "I." His breathing hitched. "I hurt." Silence. Then. "I hurt him." The doc became strangely quiet. The handler slowly lowered his head. "Oh, Rin." The cub whispered again. "I bit my first friend." Nathan looked toward him. "First friend?" The handler answered quietly. "He's never met a human." Nathan nodded. "I figured." The handler swallowed. Most visitors refused to come near Dravik juveniles. Nathan glanced back toward the cub. "So." He finally worked up the courage to meet someone. The handler nodded miserably. And then he got scared. Rin squeezed his eyes shut. "They'll send me away." Nobody answered. Because everyone assumed he was right. Nathan carefully stood despite 3 protesting medics. Sir. You need treatment. I'll survive another minute. You don't know that. Nathan smiled. Fair point. Then. He walked toward the cub. Administrator Tarek nearly had a heart attack. Ambassador. Security officers lifted their weapons. The handler looked horrified. Please don't. Nathan ignored everyone. Step. 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 Until he knelt several feet away from the trembling youngster. He didn't reach out. He simply sat. On the cold metal floor. At eye level. For almost 30 seconds. Neither of them spoke. Then Nathan smiled. You know. The cub slowly looked up. When I was 8. A frightened horse kicked me into a fence. The cub blinked. Nathan continued. When I was 12. Our family dog bit my hand. Another blink. When I was 16. I made the mistake of surprising an angry goose. One of the human security officers quietly muttered. That was a massacre. Nathan ignored him. The point is. Being scared makes everybody do dumb things. Rin's voice cracked. I am bad. Nathan immediately shook his head. No. I bit. You did. I made blood. You did. So. I am bad. Nathan smiled sadly. No. You made a bad choice. That isn't the same thing. The cub stared. Nobody on the station had ever explained the difference. Nathan slowly extended his good hand. Not toward the cub's face. Not toward his teeth. Just. Resting on the floor between them. You know what happens next? Rin whispered. Punishment? Nathan chuckled. No. You apologize. You learn. And tomorrow. You do better than you did today. The cub's eyes filled with tears. I can. Nathan nodded. Everybody gets a first chance. The entire docking bay watched in complete disbelief as the frightened predator crawled forward. And gently rested his forehead against the human's open hand. No claws. No teeth. Only silent tears. Administrator Tarek realized something impossible. The most dangerous creature in Dock 7 wasn't acting like a predator anymore. He was acting like a frightened child. And somehow, the human had seen that before anyone else. For several long seconds, no one dared interrupt. The entire docking concourse remained frozen as the young Dravik rested his forehead against Nathan Hale's hand. Even the security drones seemed uncertain. Their targeting beams remained fixed on Rin, but no one gave the order to fire. Administrator Tarek slowly lowered his communicator. In 12 years managing Citadel Asterion, he had witnessed riots, pirate attacks, diplomatic assassinations, reactor failures, and one memorable incident involving a telepathic fungus. Nothing had ever confused him this much. Nathan finally broke the silence. Hey. Rin looked up. What's your name? The cub hesitated. Rin. I'm Nathan. The cub blinked. You still talk to me? Nathan smiled. Of course. I bit you. You've mentioned that. I hurt you. You did. So. Why? Nathan thought for a moment. Then he answered with complete honesty. Because I don't think you wanted to. The cub froze. The handler covered his mouth. Tarek felt something tighten in his chest. The words were simple. But no one on the station had ever spoken them aloud. The lead physician finally marched over, clearly running out of patience. "Ambassador." Nathan looked up. "You are still bleeding." "I noticed." "Medical bay." Nathan sighed dramatically. "You're really not going to let this go, are you?" "No." "Fine." He slowly stood. His injured arm protested immediately. Pain flashed across his face before disappearing beneath another calm smile. Rin saw it. The cub's ears flattened. "I made that." Nathan glanced down. "You did." "I'm sorry." "I know. I really didn't mean." The translator struggled to keep up with the youngster's shaking voice. Nathan gently interrupted. "I believe you." The medical team escorted Nathan toward the station infirmary. Halfway there, he looked back. Rin still hadn't moved. The cub remained sitting exactly where Nathan had left him. Head hanging. Tail wrapped tightly around himself. Like he was waiting for someone to decide his fate. Nathan stopped walking. The physician groaned. "What now?" Nathan pointed. "He's coming too." The handler blinked. "What?" I said. "He's coming." Administrator Tarek stared. "Ambassador. The medical wing is a restricted diplomatic area." Nathan nodded. "I know. The cub isn't authorized." Nathan smiled. "Then authorize him." "It isn't that simple." "It usually isn't." 20 minutes later. The station's medical department had become the busiest place on Citadel Asterion. Not because of the injury. Because everyone wanted updates. Council members. Security officers. Journalists. Scientists. Even maintenance crews found excuses to walk past the observation windows. Rumors spread faster than light. The human punched the cub unconscious. No. The cub surrendered. I heard the human hypnotized it. I heard humans can control predators. I heard the cub adopted the human. What? No idea. Inside treatment room 4. Reality was far stranger. Nathan sat on the examination table while 3 physicians scanned his arm from every possible angle. Another scan. A third. Nathan finally asked. "Is that a good or a bad The senior physician looked genuinely offended. "It is a medically confusing Your radius is intact." "Good. Your muscles are bruised." "I assumed. The puncture depth should have severed 2 tendons." Nathan flexed his fingers. "They seem attached." "They should not." Another scan. No venom. Excellent. No nerve damage. Even better. No fractures. Nathan grinned. "So. I'm hard to kill?" The physician sighed. "I dislike your species." Near the doorway. Rin sat perfectly still. He hadn't spoken once since entering. Hadn't moved. Hadn't even blinked much. Every few seconds he looked at Nathan's bandaged arm. Then immediately looked away. Like he couldn't bear the sight. Nathan noticed. Of course he noticed. "So, Rin." The cub looked up instantly. "What kinds of things do you like?" Rin seemed completely confused. "Like?" "Yeah. Games. Food. Running. Climbing. The cub hesitated. Sky fish. Nathan frowned. Sky fish? The handler smiled for the first time that day. They're native to Dravik Prime. They glide between floating crystal forests. Nathan's eyes lit up. That sounds amazing. Rin blinked. You think so? Absolutely. The cub's scales shifted ever so slightly. From dull gray to the faintest hint of blue. Hope. Administrator Tarek quietly watched the color change. He immediately turned toward the handler. What does blue mean? The handler whispered. Relief. Tarek frowned. I thought Dravoks only changed color during aggression. The handler gave a tired smile. That's what most species believe. What does gray mean? Fear. And blue? Safety. Administrator Tarek slowly looked back at Nathan. The human hadn't known any of that. He'd simply treated the cub kindly. And somehow, the cub now felt safe. A notification chimed across every terminal in the room. Emergency Council session called. Subject: Human diplomatic incident. Administrator Tarek closed his eyes. Already. The physician looked up. They're moving quickly. They're terrified. Nathan chuckled. Of me? No. Tarek answered honestly. They're terrified of what happens next. Nathan looked genuinely puzzled. What do you mean? Tarek met his eyes. Every species aboard this station believes humanity will demand punishment. Nathan glanced toward Rin. The cub immediately lowered his head again. I don't want punishment. Tarek nodded slowly. I know. The council doesn't. Just then, a tiny scratching sound echoed from beside the examination table. Nathan looked down. Rin had quietly shuffled closer. Only a few inches. In his mouth, he carried something. A small, smooth crystal. Deep blue. He carefully placed it on the floor beside Nathan's boot. Then immediately backed away again. Nathan picked it up. It's beautiful. The handler smiled softly. Oh. Nathan looked up. What? The handler swallowed. That's his favorite stone. Nathan blinked. He carries it everywhere. Tarek frowned. Why would he give it away? The handler's voice became almost emotional. In Dravik culture, a cub only gives their favorite stone to someone they never want to lose. The room fell silent. Nathan looked from the crystal to the frightened cub, whose eyes immediately dropped to the floor in embarrassment. Very carefully, Nathan slipped the little blue stone into the breast pocket of his diplomatic coat. Then he smiled. I'll take good care of it. For the first time since the bite. Rin's tail gave a tiny, hopeful wag. And without realizing it, the human ambassador had accepted something far greater than an apology. He had accepted the beginning of a bond that would soon challenge everything the galaxy believed about predators, humanity, and family. By the next morning, the story had spread far beyond Citadel Asterion. Merchant convoys carried it through hyperspace relays. News drones replayed blurry security footage. Private channels exaggerated every detail. Some broadcasts claimed the human ambassador had survived a deadly predator attack through impossible endurance. Others insisted the cub had been mentally controlled. One particularly imaginative commentator claimed humans possessed a biological pheromone that pacified apex predators. Administrator Tarek watched the reports with growing disbelief. Not one of them mentioned the most important part. The apology. The emergency council chamber filled hours before the hearing. Representatives from 23 member species floated, perched, coiled, or hovered on their assigned platforms beneath the great glass dome. The chamber itself overlooked the violet storms of Nereth below. Normally, the view inspired calm. Today, no one noticed it. Every delegate was staring toward the central platform. Nathan Hale sat quietly in a simple diplomatic chair. His injured arm rested in a medical sling. The bite wounds had been cleaned and sealed, though the bruising still reached nearly to his elbow. Standing a respectful distance behind him were his 2 human security officers. Near the opposite wall, Rin sat beside his handler. The cub's head remained lowered. He hadn't looked at anyone except Nathan all morning. Council Speaker Illis Corin, an elderly avian diplomat whose silver feathers had become legendary across the coalition, struck the ceremonial staff against the floor. The chamber fell silent. This emergency session concerns the attack upon human ambassador Nathan Hale. She looked directly toward Nathan. Ambassador. Nathan nodded politely. You have the council's attention. She continued. Do you confirm that the juvenile Dravik caused your injuries without deliberate provocation from your side? I do. And do you request formal punishment under coalition security law? Nathan answered immediately. No. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped from every direction. No. Impossible. He misunderstands procedure. He must demand compensation. The law requires consequences. Speaker Corin struck the staff again. Order. Silence gradually returned. She looked back toward Nathan. Perhaps you misunderstood. I didn't. The juvenile attacked a diplomatic representative. I know. You possess the legal right to demand imprisonment, exile, financial restitution, or permanent containment. Nathan shrugged. I don't want any of those. An insectoid counselor clicked his mandibles sharply. Why not? Nathan looked surprised. Because he's a kid. Another delegate leaned forward. He is a Category 7 predator. Nathan smiled faintly. He's also scared of disappointing people. The chamber went quiet again. Nathan continued. Yesterday, after he bit me. What was the first thing he did? No one answered. He apologized. Nathan looked around the room. Not because someone ordered him to. Not because he thought it would help. He apologized because he already knew he'd done something wrong. A reptilian military representative folded 4 arms. Remorse does not erase danger. No. Nathan agreed. It doesn't. But remorse is where learning starts. The representative frowned. Predators do not think that way. Nathan looked toward Rin. The cub hadn't moved. He looked absolutely miserable. Nathan smiled gently. I think he does. Speaker Corin turned toward the handler. State the juvenile's behavioral history. The handler swallowed. Rin has never intentionally harmed another sapient. Murmurs spread through the chamber. He startles easily. He becomes overwhelmed by unfamiliar situations. He was removed from Dravik Prime because specialists believed controlled socialization with other species would improve emotional development. One delegate scoffed. It clearly failed. The handler lowered his eyes. I believed that yesterday. He looked toward Nathan. I no longer do. Administrator Tarek watched the human carefully. Nathan wasn't preparing legal arguments. He wasn't trying to win sympathy. He simply seemed honest. That somehow carried more weight than politics ever could. Speaker Corrin spoke again. Ambassador Hale. Nathan looked up. If punishment is unnecessary, what outcome would satisfy you? The room waited. Nathan leaned back slightly. Then answered with complete sincerity. I'd like 5 minutes. Confused silence. 5 minutes? With Rin. Alone. Half the chamber protested immediately. Absolutely not. Unacceptable. Security risk. He has already attacked once. Nathan folded his hands calmly. And if he attacks again? I'll know I was wrong. Speaker Corrin narrowed her eyes. You are willing to risk your life to prove a philosophical point? Nathan smiled. No. He glanced toward the frightened cub. I'm willing to risk it. To prove that one frightened child shouldn't be defined by the worst 10 seconds of his life. The chamber fell silent. Administrator Tarek slowly realized something. The human wasn't defending predators. He wasn't challenging the law. He was asking a much more dangerous question. What if mercy worked better than fear? And no one in the council had ever seriously considered that possibility. The council debated for almost an hour. Not about laws. Not about security. About the human. Several delegates insisted Nathan Hale had suffered trauma and was making irrational decisions. Others argued humans simply possessed unusual psychological resilience. A few quietly wondered if this was some elaborate Terran diplomatic strategy. Administrator Tarek Voss knew better. After watching Nathan for nearly 2 days, he had reached one unavoidable conclusion. The ambassador wasn't pretending. He genuinely believed what he was saying. That made him impossible to predict. At last, Speaker Illis Corrin struck her staff against the chamber floor. The request is approved. The room exploded. Speaker. This is reckless. If the ambassador is harmed again. Corrin silenced them with a single raised wing. The room will remain under surveillance. Security teams will stand outside. If the juvenile displays aggression, intervention will be immediate. She looked toward Nathan. You asked for 5 minutes. You shall have them. Nathan smiled. Thank you. A quiet counseling room on the station's eastern wing was selected. No furniture except 2 chairs and a low table. Large observation windows overlooked the stars. Behind mirrored glass, security officers, medics, psychologists, and nearly half the council watched silently. No one inside the room could see them. Nathan entered first. He sat down without speaking. A moment later, the door opened again. Rin stepped inside. The cub looked as though he wanted to disappear. His head hung low. His tail dragged across the floor. He stopped just inside the doorway. I can stay here. Nathan smiled. You can come closer if you want. Rin hesitated. Then slowly padded across the room until he sat several feet away. Neither of them spoke. 1 minute passed. Behind the glass, several delegates exchanged confused glances. What is he doing? Tarek whispered. Waiting. Finally, Nathan broke the silence. You know. I was scared too. Rin looked up so quickly his ears twitched. You were? Nathan nodded. When you jumped at me. I thought I was about to lose my arm. The cub's eyes filled with guilt. I'm sorry. I know. Another silence settled. Then Nathan asked. Can I ask you something? Rin nodded. What scared you? The question caught everyone off guard. Behind the glass, several psychologists leaned forward. No one had asked that. Not once. The cub struggled to answer. The noise. Nathan waited. The drone. It screamed. And my father. Rin stopped. His breathing became uneven. Nathan said nothing. He simply listened. After several seconds, the cub found his voice again. When I was little, my father told me, if something suddenly moves, bite first. The room became utterly silent. He said, if I waited, I would die. Nathan slowly nodded. So that's what you did. Rin looked miserable. I didn't think. I remembered. Behind the observation glass, the station psychologist quietly whispered. Oh. Administrator Tarek frowned. What? She didn't take her eyes off the room. That's not aggression. It's conditioning. Nathan leaned forward slightly. My dad taught me something too. Rin blinked. He said. Fear keeps you alive. The cub nodded eagerly. Yes. Nathan smiled. But then he always added something else. What? Fear gets the first vote. It doesn't get the last one. The cub stared. Nathan continued gently. You couldn't control being scared. But you can learn what happens after. Rin whispered. Can I? I think you've already started. The cub lowered his head. I don't want everyone to be afraid of me. Nathan's smile softened. I know. I don't want to be what they think. You aren't. I bit you. You did. I made blood. You did. I scared everyone. You did. Rin squeezed his eyes shut. So how can you still like me? Nathan answered without hesitation. Because I met you. The cub looked confused. Nathan continued. They met one moment. I met the person. Behind the glass. Nobody spoke. Not the soldiers. Not the politicians. Not the doctors. The sentence settled over the room like gravity. They met one moment. I met the person. Administrator Tarek quietly repeated it to himself. It felt important. Nathan slowly reached into his coat pocket. He removed the small blue crystal Rin had given him the previous day. I've been carrying this. The cub's golden eyes widened. You kept it? I told you I would. Nathan gently placed it on the table. I have something I'd like to trade. He unclipped a small silver pin from his diplomatic jacket. The emblem of the Terran Union. A simple blue earth surrounded by stars. My first diplomatic posting. I've carried this for 15 years. He slid it across the table. Rin stared at it in disbelief. For me? Nathan nodded. If you'll have it. The cub carefully picked up the little silver emblem. He held it like it might break. I've never had a friend from another world. Nathan smiled. I haven't either. The timer chimed softly. 5 minutes had ended. Neither of them moved. Behind the observation window, Speaker Corin quietly turned toward Administrator Tarek. How long have they been talking? Tarek checked the display. 28 minutes. No one had noticed. No one had wanted to interrupt. Because everyone watching had forgotten they were observing an incident. They had been watching the beginning of a friendship. And for the first time in Citadel Asterian's history, the council wondered if perhaps the human had been right all along. The meeting should have ended there. The council had heard enough. The medical report had been filed. The security review was complete. The incident, by every legal standard, was over. Instead, it became the beginning of something no protocol had anticipated. Over the next 4 days, Nathan refused to avoid Rin. Whenever his schedule allowed, he visited the station's arboretum, a sprawling biodome filled with towering crystal trees, shallow streams, and soft bioluminescent moss imported from dozens of worlds. It was the quietest place on Citadel Asterian. Soon, Rin began showing up too. At first, he stayed at the opposite end of the garden, watching, never approaching unless Nathan acknowledged him. Then one afternoon, Nathan rolled a smooth stone across the grass. It stopped a few meters from the cub. Rin looked at it. Then at Nathan. Nathan smiled. "Could you bring that back?" The cub blinked. "That's all?" "That's all." Rin carefully picked up the stone in his mouth, walked back without running, and gently placed it into Nathan's open palm. "Perfect." The cub's scales shimmered with a faint blue glow. The next time, Nathan tossed it a little farther. "Remember." "What?" "Walk. Don't sprint." Rin nodded seriously. He fought every instinct telling him to chase at full speed. Instead, he walked. Picked up the stone. Walked back. Set it down carefully. Nathan grinned. "There you go. See? You were in control." The praise hit the cub harder than any reward. His tail wagged so enthusiastically that he nearly knocked over a decorative lantern. He caught himself just in time. Nathan laughed. "Nice recovery." Rin actually smiled. Administrator Tarek had intended to observe from a distance for only a few minutes. Instead, he found himself returning every afternoon. Not because he doubted Nathan anymore. Because he couldn't stop watching. The changes were impossible to ignore. The cub no longer crowded people. He asked before approaching. He stopped several body lengths away whenever someone looked nervous. He kept his claws sheathed. Most surprisingly, he had started speaking first. "May I come closer? Are you comfortable? I can wait." Simple phrases. But each one represented a victory over instinct. Station staff noticed too. The gardeners stopped hiding whenever Rin entered the biodome. Maintenance workers began greeting him. One elderly vendor even started bringing the cub fresh slices of starfruit every morning. Rin accepted each gift with the same careful words Nathan had taught him. "Thank you." No growling. No snapping. No sudden movements. Just gratitude. Not everyone was convinced. Captain Drex, commander of station security, remained deeply skeptical. He cornered Administrator Tarek outside the operations center. "This won't last." Tarek folded his arms. "What won't?" "The act. He is an apex predator. Instinct always wins." Tarek glanced through the observation window toward the garden. Nathan sat on a bench reading reports. Rin lay nearby with his head resting on his front paws. Peacefully asleep. The human absent-mindedly scratched behind one of the cub's horn ridges without looking up from his datapad. The cub made a soft rumbling sound of contentment. Tarek raised an eyebrow. "Does that look like an act?" Captain Drex frowned. "No. It looks." He searched for the word. "Impossible." That evening, Nathan received an invitation from Speaker Corin. Private dinner. No guards. No formal agenda. Just conversation. Nathan accepted. The speaker wasted very little time. I have studied humanity for 31 years. Nathan smiled. My condolences. She ignored the joke. I believed your species succeeded because you were adaptable. We are. I believed your resilience explained your survival. It helps. She leaned forward. I was wrong. Nathan tilted his head. In what way? The elderly avian folded her wings thoughtfully. Your greatest strength is neither your technology nor your endurance. It is. She paused. Your refusal to let fear make your decisions. Nathan became unusually quiet. Finally, he nodded. We still get scared. I've been terrified plenty of times. But my grandmother used to tell me something. What? If fear is driving, don't let it hold the map. Speaker Corin slowly smiled. I think the council has been letting fear hold the map for a very long time. The following morning, everything changed. It happened so quickly that later reports disagreed on almost every detail. Some said it lasted 20 seconds. Others claimed less than 10. Everyone agreed on one thing. Without Rin, someone would have died. The central transit plaza buzzed with hundreds of travelers moving between docking rings. Overhead, a maintenance crew repaired one of the suspended cargo rails. Nathan happened to be buying breakfast from a human vendor. Rin sat beside him, happily chewing on a dried protein strip. Administrator Tarek was reviewing customs reports nearby. Then, a sharp metallic crack echoed across the plaza. Everyone looked up. One of the massive cargo containers had broken free. Nearly 2 tons of equipment swung downward. Directly beneath it, a tiny child from the gentle Lurani species stood frozen in fear. Too young to understand the warning alarms. Too frightened to move. The crowd screamed. Adults scattered in every direction. Except toward the child. Rin reacted first. His muscles coiled. For the briefest moment, instinct surged through him. Run. Leap. Pounce. Then, another voice echoed inside his memory. Fear gets the first vote. It doesn't get the last one. The cub made his choice. Not with instinct. With purpose. And before anyone else could move, Rin launched himself toward the falling cargo. Rin crossed the plaza like a streak of black lightning. Gasps echoed in every direction. To the terrified crowd, it looked exactly like the beginning of another attack. Administrator Tarek's heart nearly stopped. No. Security officers reached for their weapons. Captain Drex shouted. Predator charging. The targeting drones pivoted instantly. Red lights locked onto Rin. None of them realized. He wasn't running at the child. He was running for the child. The cargo container groaned as another support cable snapped. Its enormous weight swung lower. The little Lurani child remained frozen beneath it. Their wide silver eyes stared upward. Unable to move. Unable even to cry. Everything happened at once. Rin dug his claws into the polished floor, changing direction in a controlled slide just as Nathan had taught him during their practice sessions. Control first. Speed second. The cub reached the child. Instead of grabbing with his jaws, he wrapped one foreleg around the tiny alien, tucked them tightly against his chest, and twisted his body sideways. His armored shoulder slammed into the deck. The child was completely shielded beneath him. A heartbeat later. Boom! The cargo container crashed exactly where the child had been standing. The impact shook the entire transit plaza. Metal twisted. Glass exploded. Dust filled the air. The shockwave rolled through the station like thunder. When the dust finally settled, no one moved. Everyone stared. The massive container lay shattered across the floor. A few meters away, Rin slowly lifted his head. The little Lurani child was still tucked safely beneath his foreleg. Completely unharmed. The child blinked once. Then looked up at the enormous predator protecting them. Warm. The tiny voice carried farther than anyone expected. Rin carefully released the child and immediately backed away 3 steps. Exactly as Nathan had taught him. Give space. His voice trembled. Are you hurt? The child shook their head. No. Rin lowered his ears. Good. Then came the sound everyone dreaded. Security drones. 6 of them descended from the ceiling. Targeting systems locked immediately. Large predator involved in civilian incident. Preparing restraint measures. Captain Drex raised a hand. Hold your positions. But the drones operated on automated emergency protocols. Their stun emitters began charging. Administrator Tarek cursed under his breath. They don't know what happened. Nathan stepped forward without hesitation. He placed himself directly between the drones and the cub. Stand down. The drones ignored him. Civilian safety priority. Nathan folded his arms. I said. Stand down. One of the security officers whispered. Sir. They'll fire. Nathan didn't move. Behind him. Rin remained perfectly still. Every instinct screamed at him to run. Instead, he remembered another lesson. If people are frightened, don't give them another reason to be. So he sat down. Folded all 4 paws beneath himself. Tucked in every claw. Lowered his head. And waited. Administrator Tarek stared in disbelief. Only 4 days ago, the cub had bitten a diplomat because fear had taken control. Now, fear was everywhere around him. Yet he chose restraint. The Lurani child's parents finally reached the scene. The mother scooped up her child, checking desperately for injuries. Are you hurt? The child smiled. The big scales caught me. The parents looked toward Rin. The cub immediately lowered his eyes. I'm sorry if I scared you. The father blinked. You saved our child. Rin hesitated. I just did what Nathan says. Nathan laughed softly. What did Nathan say? Rin looked embarrassed. Protect people. Use your head before your teeth. Several nearby humans smiled. Administrator Tarek noticed something remarkable. The crowd wasn't backing away anymore. They were moving closer. Curious. Not frightened. Captain Drex finally approached. Slowly. He stopped directly in front of the cub. Everyone held their breath. The security commander had opposed Nathan's methods from the beginning. If anyone would object, it would be him. Instead, Drex knelt. Looked Rin directly in the eyes. Then quietly asked. Did you know that cargo would fall? Rin shook his head. No. Were you afraid? Very. Then why did you run toward it? The cub looked genuinely confused. Because the little one couldn't. Silence. The answer was so simple. It left no room for argument. Later that afternoon, the Transit Plaza security footage was reviewed by the council. Frame by frame. Again. And again. The analysts slowed the recording to 1/10 speed. Something caught Administrator Tarek's attention. Stop. The footage froze. There. Just before Rin launched himself. His body had begun to crouch in the familiar posture of a hunting pounce. Then. He stopped. Actually stopped. One heartbeat later. He shifted his weight. Changed his angle. Protected the child instead of tackling them. Tarek quietly whispered. He interrupted his own instinct. The station psychologist nodded. Yes. That's extraordinarily difficult. Captain Drex stared at the screen. So. He made a choice. The psychologist smiled. He made the right one. That evening. The story spread across the station far faster than the story of the bite ever had. But this time. People didn't call Rin the Predator Cub. They called him something else. The Guardian Cub. When Rin heard the nickname, he looked at Nathan with obvious confusion. What is Guardian? Nathan smiled warmly. It means someone people feel safer because you're nearby. The cub was silent for several seconds. Then his scales slowly shifted into the brightest blue anyone on Citadel Asterion had ever seen. He wasn't proud because he had been called a hero. He was happy because, for the very first time in his young life, the galaxy no longer looked at him and saw a monster. By sunrise the next cycle, the rescue footage had reached every level of the coalition. Not edited. Not dramatized. The complete recording. First, the bite. Then the apology. Then the conversations in the garden. And finally, Rin risking his own life to save a child he had never met. For the first time, the galaxy saw the entire story instead of a single frightening moment. Citadel Asterion's Grand Assembly Chamber had never been so crowded. Delegates filled every platform. Military observers stood along the walls. Scientists occupied the upper galleries. Psychologists, educators, and diplomats watched from overflow chambers across the station. Administrator Tarek looked around and quietly muttered. This is no longer about one cub. Speaker Illis Koran overheard him. No. She answered softly. It never was. Nathan entered the chamber with his arm no longer in a sling. The bite marks had faded into neat rows of healing scars. Beside him walked Rin. Not behind him. Not hidden. Beside him. The cub wore a simple navy harness with a small silver badge reading Juvenile, Educational Supervision. No chains. No restraints. No muzzle. Just trust. That detail alone sparked whispers throughout the chamber. Speaker Koran struck her staff once. The assembly will come to order. The room fell silent. She looked toward the central platform. This hearing concerns two questions. First, should the juvenile Dravik known as Rin retain his Hazard Class 7 designation? Second, what should the Coalition learn from these events? The second question surprised almost everyone. Nathan smiled faintly. He knew it was the important one. The first witness was Captain Drex. Only a week earlier, he had demanded permanent containment. Now he stood before the assembly looking almost uncomfortable. I opposed Ambassador Hale's approach. He spoke plainly. I believed instinct could not be changed. He activated the rescue footage. The recording played silently above the chamber. Rin beginning a hunting leap. Then stopping himself. Changing direction. Shielding the child. Sitting calmly while armed drones surrounded him. Captain Drex looked toward the delegates. I was wrong. Murmurs swept through the chamber. I have commanded station security for 19 years. I have seen trained soldiers panic. I have seen experienced officers lose discipline. I watched a frightened juvenile predator demonstrate greater self-control than many adults. He bowed his head slightly. I therefore recommend immediate removal of Hazard Class 7. Next came the station psychologist. She projected several neurological scans. Fear pathways remain present. She pointed toward another image. But repeated positive reinforcement has strengthened voluntary behavioral control. One delegate frowned. Explain. She smiled. In simple terms. Rin no longer reacts. He chooses. The third witness shocked everyone. The tiny Lurani child walked into the chamber holding one parent's hand. Gasps echoed around the room. The child looked directly at the towering delegates. Then pointed toward Rin. He saved me. The room remained perfectly silent. The child continued. When everybody else ran away. He ran toward me. Then the little one walked across the chamber. And hugged Rin's front leg. The cub froze. Terrified he might accidentally hurt the child. Nathan whispered. It's okay. Very carefully. Rin lowered his head until it rested gently against the child's shoulder. The entire assembly watched without speaking. Some moments required no debate. This was one of them. Finally. Speaker Corrin turned toward Nathan. Ambassador Hale. Nathan stood. You have changed policy discussions across 17 member worlds. He smiled. I've been told. She folded her wings. Tell us. Why? Nathan looked around the chamber. At the soldiers. The politicians. The scientists. The frightened parents. Then at Rin. When Rin bit me. I had two choices. I could ask. How do I punish him? He paused. Or I could ask. Why did this happen? The chamber remained silent. The first question protects the past. The second protects the future. He slowly walked toward the center of the room. My species has made plenty of mistakes. We've feared people we didn't understand. We've judged entire groups because of the actions of a few. We've learned, sometimes the hard way, that fear is a terrible architect. It builds walls. It rarely builds better people. He looked down at Rin. This cub didn't need someone to tell him he was dangerous. He already believed that. What he needed was someone willing to show him he could become something else. Administrator Tarek felt an unexpected lump in his throat. He looked around. Several delegates appeared equally affected. Even those who still disagreed could not deny what they had witnessed. Not theories. Not promises. Evidence. Speaker Corrin rose from her seat. The assembly will vote. Lights illuminated across every delegate's platform. One by one. Votes appeared in the chamber. Green. 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 Another green. A single red. Then more green. The tally finished. Hazard Class 7 designation, revoked. Educational status, approved. Coalition Juvenile Rehabilitation Initiative, approved. The chamber erupted into applause. Not polite diplomatic applause. Real applause. The kind born from relief. Rin looked around in complete confusion. They're happy? Nathan laughed. They're happy. The cub's tail wagged so hard it nearly knocked over his own chair. For the first time in Coalition history, an apex predator wasn't being celebrated for strength. He was being celebrated for choosing kindness. And everyone present understood they had just witnessed the beginning of a new era. The celebration lasted long into the station's artificial night. For the first time in Citadel Asterian's history, predators and prey shared the same central plaza without hidden security barriers separating them. Musicians from 6 different species performed together. Children laughed. Merchants handed out free food. Even Captain Drex, who normally considered smiling an unnecessary use of facial muscles, accepted a cup of Terran coffee. He immediately regretted it. How do humans drink this? Nathan grinned. Years of practice. I believe it is removing my ability to taste. It'll do that. Administrator Tarek wandered through the celebration with quiet disbelief. Only 12 days earlier, these same corridors had echoed with emergency alarms after a frightened cub bit a visiting diplomat. Now, that very cub was helping younger children play a game involving glowing floating spheres. Nathan had modified the rules so no one had to run. Walk. Think. Take turns. Rin enforced the rules with remarkable seriousness. When one excited hatchling accidentally shoved another, the cub immediately stepped between them. Stop. No growling. No threats. Just calm. Use words. Nathan watched from nearby with unmistakable pride. Tarek found himself smiling without realizing it. Late that evening, the celebration finally began to wind down. Most visitors drifted back toward their quarters. The station grew quieter. Nathan slipped away to the observation garden overlooking the stars. It had become his favorite place aboard Asterian. A few minutes later, soft claws clicked gently against the stone path. He didn't need to turn around. You can come over. Rin padded closer. He stopped exactly 1 arm's length away. The distance Nathan had taught him to leave until invited. Nathan patted the bench beside him. Closer. The cub climbed onto the stone platform and settled beside him. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Together they watched the violet storms swirling across the giant planet below. Finally, Rin broke the silence. Nathan? When your work here is finished, you go home. I do. The cub lowered his head. And I stay. Nathan heard something deeper beneath the words. Not a question. A fear. He turned slightly. Do you want to talk about it? Ryan nodded. Very slowly. I was thinking. If you leave, I might forget how. Nathan frowned. Forget how what? How to be better. The words were almost too quiet to hear. Nathan's heart tightened. You know something? Rin looked up. I've been a teacher exactly once. You are ambassador. I know. But teaching you has been my first teaching job. The cub tilted his head. I think. Nathan smiled. You're ready to start teaching yourself. Rin didn't look convinced. What if I make another mistake? Nathan laughed softly. You will. The cub's eyes widened. I will? Absolutely. I still make mistakes. So does Administrator Tarek. I'm standing right here. Tarek said from behind a nearby crystal tree. Nathan looked over and laughed. I know. The administrator sighed dramatically and walked over. I was attempting to leave quietly. You failed. I noticed. The three of them sat together beneath the glowing branches. Tarek looked out across the stars. I've spent most of my career believing people could be sorted into categories. Dangerous. Safe. Reliable. Unpredictable. He glanced toward Rin. You have ruined that system. Nathan chuckled. Sorry. I'm not. Tarek admitted. I simply dislike rewriting 17,000 pages of regulations. Rin blinked. That's many pages. It is. Nathan laughed. You really did cause paperwork on a galactic scale. The cub looked horrified. I should apologize. Both adults burst into laughter. When the laughter faded, Nathan became quiet again. He looked at Rin. There is something I've been thinking about. The cub's ears perked. What? Nathan took a slow breath. My assignment here ends in 3 weeks. I know. I've already accepted my next posting. Rin looked back toward the stars. Oh. The disappointment in that single word was impossible to miss. Nathan smiled gently. My next posting is on Earth. Ryan nodded. Silence. Then Nathan asked the question that would change both of their lives. Would you like to come with me? The cub froze. Even Tarek stared. Rin blinked once. Twice. What? Nathan leaned back. I'm serious. You wouldn't be my prisoner. You wouldn't be a diplomatic project. You'd come as family. The garden became completely silent. Rin's breathing grew uneven. My family? Nathan nodded. If your mother agrees. And if the council approves. I'd like to become your guardian. The cub simply stared. No words came. Only tears. Large, shimmering tears that rolled down the sides of his scaled face. Nobody. He struggled to speak. You don't have to answer now. Nathan said gently. Rin suddenly closed the distance between them. Not with a leap. Not with reckless excitement. Carefully. Slowly. Exactly as he'd been taught. He rested his forehead against Nathan's shoulder. The same way he had rested it against the human's hand after the bite. Except this time. There was no fear. Only trust. Very quietly, almost too quietly to hear, the cub whispered. I would like that. Administrator Tarek looked away toward the stars. Not because protocol required privacy. But because, for reasons he couldn't quite explain. His eyes had suddenly become suspiciously wet. Far above them, Citadel Asterion continued its endless orbit around the violet giant. The station had expected history to remember the bite. Instead, history would remember everything that came after. And somewhere deep inside Administrator Tarek Voss, a realization settled with surprising certainty. Sometimes the bravest thing in the galaxy wasn't defeating a monster. It was refusing to believe someone was one in the first place. 3 days after Nathan's offer, an encrypted transmission arrived from Dravik Prime. The sender's identification caused every communications officer on Citadel Asterion to straighten in surprise. Matriarch Varessa. Rin's mother. Leader of one of the oldest Dravik family lines. Among her people, her word carried the weight of law. If anyone could approve, or deny, the guardianship request, it was her. Administrator Tarek personally escorted Nathan to the secure communications chamber. Rin walked beside them in unusual silence. Normally the cub asked dozens of questions. Today, he hadn't spoken in nearly an hour. Nathan noticed. Nervous? Ryan nodded. What if she says no? Nathan rested a hand lightly on the cub's shoulder. Then nothing changes. Rin looked confused. What do you mean? We'll still be friends. I'll still visit. I'll still answer every message you send. The cub's tail gave the smallest hopeful twitch. You promise? I promise. The chamber doors sealed behind them. A circular holographic projector illuminated. Blue light shimmered. Then slowly formed the image of an enormous Dravik female. She was nearly twice Rin's size. Her scales carried deep crimson markings along her neck and shoulders, symbols of adulthood and leadership. Her golden eyes studied the room carefully. They settled first on her son. Rin. The cub immediately lowered his head. Mother. You appear healthy. I am. She looked toward Nathan. You are the human. Nathan inclined his head respectfully. I am. Several long seconds passed. Neither adult spoke. Administrator Tarek quietly wondered if this was some form of Dravik custom. Finally, the matriarch broke the silence. My son bit you. He did. You carry permanent scars. I probably will. You seek nothing in return. Nathan smiled gently. I've already received something in return. The great Dravik tilted her head. What? Nathan glanced toward Rin. A friend. The matriarch became very still. She looked back at her son. Rin. Yes, mother? When you were small. What did I tell you strength was? The cub answered immediately. To protect. And what did your father teach you? Rin hesitated. His ears lowered. To survive. The matriarch nodded slowly. Your father lived in difficult times. He believed survival required striking first. She looked toward Nathan. Perhaps. He was only partly correct. Rin stared at his mother in surprise. She continued. I have watched every recording. The bite. The apology. The rescue. She lowered her massive head slightly. I also watched something else. Nathan frowned. What? The way you looked at my son. The chamber remained silent. You did not look at a predator. You did not look at a danger. You looked. She searched carefully for the right human word. At a child. Nathan answered quietly. Because that's what he is. For the first time. The stern matriarch smiled. It was small. Almost invisible. But Rin saw it immediately. His tail moved hopefully. The matriarch looked directly into Nathan's eyes. There are many who can teach strength. There are few who can teach wisdom. She turned back toward her son. Rin. The cub stood straighter. If you go with the human, you do not stop being Dravik. I know. You carry our people with you. I will. You honor us. I'll try. You return when you wish. I promise. Then came the words no one in the room expected. I approve the guardianship. Administrator Tarek actually forgot to breathe. Nathan blinked. Rin simply stared. Mother? She nodded once. You have already begun learning something our people have forgotten. What? That courage is not measured by the force of your bite. Her eyes shifted briefly toward Nathan. Sometimes. It is measured by your willingness to trust. The hologram slowly stepped closer. Though only an image, it somehow felt deeply personal. She addressed Nathan directly. Human. Nathan. My son once drew your blood. Nathan nodded. He did. I cannot undo that. No. But I can give you what remains within my power. She lowered her head in the formal Dravic gesture of profound respect. My gratitude. The room fell utterly silent. Administrator Tarek had never, not once, seen a Dravic matriarch bow to someone outside her own species. Nathan looked genuinely humbled. He mirrored the gesture with a respectful inclination of his own head. It means a great deal. Rin could hold himself together no longer. He ran toward the hologram, knowing he couldn't actually touch it. Still, he sat before his mother's image. I'll make you proud. The matriarch smiled fully now. I already am. The transmission ended. The hologram dissolved into blue light. The chamber remained quiet. Rin wiped at his eyes with one forepaw. Nathan pretended not to notice. Instead, he pulled a small digital tablet from his coat. Well. The cub sniffled. What? Nathan grinned. We need to start planning. Planning? Earth. Your room. School. Clothes. The cub blinked rapidly. I get a room? Nathan laughed. Of course. Rin looked astonished. My own room? Yep. The cub thought very hard. Then asked the most important question imaginable. Can it have a window? Nathan smiled. The biggest one in the house. For the first time since the transmission began. Laughter. A bright, joyful sound that echoed through the communications chamber. Administrator Tarek listened quietly. Only days ago, that same voice had trembled with shame after a frightened mistake. Now, it carried hope. And somehow, that seemed far more powerful than anything the council had voted on. As they left the chamber together, Tarek looked at Nathan. You realize, your life is about to become significantly more complicated. Nathan chuckled. I know. You've just adopted a young apex predator. I know. They chew. I've heard. They shed. I can buy a vacuum. They become enormous. Nathan smiled. So do human teenagers. For the first time in many years. Administrator Tarek laughed so hard that passing station staff stopped to stare. And he didn't care. Because Citadel Asterion was no longer just a station that had witnessed an accident. It had become the place where two worlds chose each other. 6 weeks later. Dock 1 had never been so crowded. Officials lined the observation balconies. Maintenance workers abandoned perfectly good repairs. Merchants closed their stalls early. Even travelers delayed departures just to witness what everyone already called the departure. Not because a human ambassador was leaving. Diplomats came and went every cycle. This was different. Today, Citadel Asterion would watch a former Hazard Class 7 juvenile board a Terran vessel. Not as cargo. Not as a prisoner. Not as a diplomatic experiment. But as a legally recognized member of a human family. Administrator Tarek stood near the boarding ramp with a data slate tucked beneath one arm. He had spent most of the previous night signing transfer authorizations. Medical clearances. Educational records. Guardianship approvals. Vaccination certificates. Customs exemptions. By the end of it all, he had only one conclusion. Humans. Nathan looked over. What about us? You require entirely too much paperwork. Nathan grinned. We prefer to call it organization. Tarek snorted. You call everything different names. Nearby. Rin stood remarkably still while a human logistics officer adjusted his travel harness. The dark blue fabric fit comfortably around his growing frame. Attached to one side was a tiny embroidered Earth flag. On the other, the silver crest of Citadel Asterion. The cub looked down at both patches. Can I keep these forever? Nathan smiled. Absolutely. They're part of your story. Rin touched the station emblem gently with one claw. I don't want to forget. Nathan's expression softened. You won't. Captain Drex approached carrying a small rectangular case. I have something. Rin looked surprised. For me? The security commander nodded. Inside the case rested a polished silver badge. Not a weapon. Not a medal. It bore the emblem of station security. Below it, one simple inscription. Honor through restraint. Rin looked up. I didn't work here. Captain Drex smiled, an expression still so rare that nearby officers quietly stared. You taught my officers something. What? That strength isn't measured by who you can overpower. He gently fastened the badge to the cub's harness. It is measured by what you choose not to do. Rin stood a little taller. I'll wear it proudly. I know you will. One by one. People came to say goodbye. The elderly gardener handed Rin a pouch of crystal flower seeds. So you'll remember the garden. The maintenance chief gave him a tiny polished wrench. In case humans build things badly. Nathan raised an eyebrow. We heard that. The mechanic shrugged. You were meant to. Even Dr. Celine Eris, the physician who had complained about humans every single day, arrived carrying a medical kit. This is standard Terran first aid? Nathan asked. She nodded. I modified it. For what? She looked at Rin. So it includes antiseptic safe for Dravik scales. Nathan smiled warmly. You'll miss him. I will deny saying that. The loudspeaker chimed gently. Final boarding call. The crowd grew quiet. Nathan picked up his travel bag. Ready? Rin nodded confidently. Then paused. Actually. No. Nathan laughed softly. That's okay. You don't have to be. The cub took a deep breath. I am excited. I know. I am scared. I know. Nathan rested a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You can be both. Before they reached the ramp, Administrator Tarek stepped forward. I have one last thing. Nathan smiled. I was wondering when administrators became sentimental. We don't. Tarek handed him a slim data crystal. What is it? A complete history. Nathan activated it briefly. Thousands of photographs appeared. Rin in the garden. Rin returning the blue stone. The rescue. The assembly vote. Children playing together. Even the very first image. A frightened cub sitting in a corner after the bite. Nathan looked up. You kept all of this? Tarek nodded. History should remember the whole story. Not only the frightening beginning. Nathan quietly closed the crystal. Thank you. Rin suddenly walked toward Administrator Tarek. The old administrator expected a formal farewell. Instead, The cub wrapped both forelegs carefully around him in an awkward but unmistakable hug. Tarek froze. Every official on the dock stared. After a long moment, the administrator slowly returned the embrace. Only slightly. Just enough. I shall pretend this is acceptable administrative conduct. Laughter. I know. You'll write? I promise. You'll study hard? I promise. You'll stop chewing furniture? The cub looked at Nathan. I can promise to try. Nathan sighed dramatically. Progress. The boarding ramp began to retract. Nathan and Rin climbed slowly toward the shuttle. Halfway up, Rin stopped. He looked back over the enormous station. The place where he had believed his life ended. Only to discover it had truly begun. He turned toward the gathered crowd. His voice carried clearly across the silent docking bay. When I first came here, everyone was afraid of my teeth. He paused. Then one human showed me that my heart mattered more. Many in the crowd lowered their heads. Some openly wiped away tears. Rin smiled. I'll make both worlds proud. Then he turned and walked aboard the ship beside the man who had become his father in every way that truly mattered. As the shuttle slowly lifted from Dock 1, Administrator Tarek watched it disappear into the stars. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, Captain Drex broke the silence. Do you think Earth is ready for him? Tarek smiled faintly. No. He looked toward the endless stars where the shuttle had vanished. But I suspect Earth has been preparing for someone exactly like him for a very long time. Far beyond Citadel Asterion, a human ship accelerated toward home. Aboard it sat a former predator cub looking out a window for the first time in his life. Wondering what oceans looked like. Wondering if birds really stole food. Wondering if geese were truly as terrifying as Nathan claimed. And beside him sat the human who had changed not only one frightened child, but the future of an entire galaxy. The first thing Rin noticed about Earth was the smell. Not one smell. Thousands. Salt carried by the wind. Fresh rain soaking warm soil. Flowers blooming somewhere beyond the landing field. Trees. Animals. Food. Life. So much life that his sensitive Dravic senses almost shut down trying to understand it all. He blinked rapidly through the shuttle window. Nathan. The human smiled without looking up from the landing checklist. Yeah, buddy? Your planet is loud. Nathan laughed. We get that a lot. The shuttle pierced the clouds. Rin pressed closer to the window. Below him stretched endless oceans that glittered beneath the afternoon sun. Then forests. Mountains. Cities. Roads. Tiny moving vehicles. Everything looked impossibly alive. So much green. Nathan followed his gaze. That's spring. Does it always look like this? No. It gets greener. Rin stared. Greener? You'll see. The landing thrusters settled onto a civilian spaceport outside Vancouver. Nathan had chosen the location carefully. Earth's Interstellar Relations Office had suggested a secure military installation. Nathan had politely declined. If Rin is going to grow up here, his first memory of Earth shouldn't be fences. Instead, they landed somewhere with trees visible from the runway. The hatch opened. Warm air rushed inside. Rin inhaled instinctively. His eyes widened. The air tastes different. Nathan stepped onto the landing platform. "Welcome home." The cub hesitated. Then slowly followed. The first thing his claws touched was natural earth soil. Not polished station metal. Not artificial flooring. Real ground. He looked down. "It's soft." Nathan grinned. "Wait until you try grass." Waiting beside the landing pad stood only a handful of people. Nathan had refused media coverage. No cameras. No reporters. No speeches. Just family. An older woman hurried forward before anyone else. She wrapped Nathan in a fierce hug. "My baby." Nathan laughed. "Mom, I'm 36. You'll always be my baby." Only then did she notice Rin. The cub instinctively stepped behind Nathan. His heart started racing. Nathan noticed immediately. "It's okay." The older woman smiled warmly. "You must be Rin." The cub peeked around Nathan's shoulder. "Hello. My name is Sarah." She crouched, not because she was afraid, but because she wanted to meet him at eye level. "I've heard wonderful things about you." Rin blinked. "Wonderful?" Nathan whispered. "I might have bragged a little." "A little? Okay. A lot." Sarah didn't reach out. Didn't try to pet him. Didn't invade his space. She simply smiled. "I'm very happy you're here." Rin looked toward Nathan. "She isn't scared." Nathan shook his head. "No." Sarah answered before Nathan could. "I raised him." She pointed toward her son. "I've survived raising a human boy." She smiled mischievously. "I've already handled one dangerous creature." Nathan groaned. "Mom." Rin tilted his head. "Were you difficult?" Sarah burst into laughter. "He once tried to build a rocket in the garage." Nathan looked offended. "It almost worked. It exploded. It was educational." Another figure stepped forward. A gray-haired man with weathered hands. Nathan's father. David. He studied Rin for a long moment. Then extended one hand. "Welcome to the family." Nothing more. Nothing less. Rin remembered everything Nathan had taught him. Ask first. Move slowly. He gently placed one scaled forepaw into the offered hand. David shook it carefully. "Good grip." Rin looked confused. That was a compliment. Nathan translated. "Oh. Thank you." The ride home was unlike anything Rin had imagined. Every few minutes he gasped. "What are those?" "Cows. They're enormous. They're actually pretty calm." Minutes later. "What are those?" "Horses. They let people ride them. They usually don't mind." Another few minutes. "Nathan." "What?" "There are birds everywhere." "Told you. They're not afraid. They've learned humans usually carry food." Then. Everything changed. A flock of Canadian geese landed beside the road. Nathan immediately slowed the car. "Oh no." Rin looked confused. "What?" Nathan pointed. "Geese." The bird stared back. One hissed. Another spread its wings. David quietly locked the car doors. Sarah nodded gravely. "Good idea." Rin looked from the birds to the humans. "You're joking." "No." Nathan answered. "They're mean. They're birds. They're tiny. One goose charged the fence. Nathan accelerated. "We're leaving." The entire family laughed. Even David. Rin stared after the furious bird disappearing behind them. "The galaxy fears my species." Nathan nodded. "Correct. And your people fear angry water birds." Nathan sighed. "You'll understand eventually." 40 minutes later. They arrived home. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't an official residence. Just a comfortable two-story house surrounded by trees. Nathan opened the front door. "Come on." Rin stepped inside carefully. Everything smelled wonderfully human. Fresh bread. Books. Soap. Coffee. Wood. Home. Then he noticed something. Pictures. Hundreds of them. Nathan as a child. Nathan graduating. Family vacations. Birthdays. Camping trips. Life. "You keep memories on walls?" Nathan smiled. "Humans like photographs." Rin wandered closer. He stopped before one picture. A little boy holding a large golden dog. His eyes widened. "Nathan?" "Yeah. Is that a predator?" Nathan smiled. "It was. It. My dog." Rin slowly looked back. "The predator lived in your house?" "Yep." "You slept near it?" "Every night." Rin looked genuinely horrified. "Voluntarily?" Nathan laughed. "Very voluntarily." The cub muttered to himself. "Humans are impossible." Nathan opened one final door. "This one's yours." Rin froze. His room. A large window overlooked a forest. A bookshelf waited against one wall. Soft blankets covered the bed specially reinforced for his size. A desk. A chair. Even a basket filled with toys and puzzles chosen specifically for Dravik learning. The cub walked inside slowly. Almost reverently. He touched the window. Then the blankets. Then the bookshelf. Finally he whispered. "Mine?" Nathan nodded. "All yours." Rin turned. His eyes glistened. "I've never." He couldn't finish. Nathan understood anyway. "You do now." That night. Long after everyone had gone to bed. Nathan found Rin sitting quietly beside the bedroom window. Moonlight silvered his midnight scales. "You okay?" The cub nodded. "I was thinking." "About what?" Rin looked out toward the forest. "When I bit you. I thought my life was over." Nathan sat beside him. "Me too." Rin blinked. "You did?" Nathan smiled. "I thought I'd failed my mission." "You thought everyone would hate me." "I did." Both of them sat quietly. Finally Rin asked. "Why didn't you?" Nathan looked out at the moon hanging over Earth. "Because I saw a frightened child before I saw a predator." The cub leaned gently against his shoulder. Outside. Crickets sang beneath the summer sky. Somewhere in the distance. A wolf howled. Rin's ears twitched. He smiled. "It sounds lonely." Nathan smiled too. "No," he said softly. "It sounds like home." Far above Earth, hidden among countless stars, observation satellites from a dozen alien civilizations quietly recorded the impossible. A former Hazard-class predator juvenile. Sleeping peacefully in a human home. Not as a prisoner. Not as an experiment. But as someone's son. And across the galaxy. Old ideas about fear continued to disappear, one act of kindness at a time. The first morning on Earth began with birds. Hundreds of them. They sang outside Rin's bedroom window long before sunrise. The young Dravik opened one eye. Then the other. He listened carefully. They're arguing. A knock came at the door. Nathan peeked inside. Morning. Rin sat up. The tiny sky creatures have been fighting for 37 minutes. Nathan smiled. They're just singing. They sound very opinionated. That's also true. Breakfast introduced Rin to another mystery. Pancakes. He stared suspiciously at the stack on his plate. They're flat. They are. They're sweet. They are. This is breakfast? Nathan nodded. One of many. Rin took a careful bite. His eyes widened. He took another. Then another. Sarah laughed. I think we have a winner. David sipped his coffee. Wait until he discovers maple syrup. Nathan looked alarmed. Dad, don't create an addiction. Too late. Rin poured syrup over the pancakes. Then froze after the first bite. His scales flushed a delighted shade of blue. This planet has magic. After breakfast, Nathan smiled. Ready for today's adventure? Rin nodded enthusiastically. What are we doing? Meeting someone. Who? Nathan hesitated just long enough to become suspicious. You'll see. They walked through quiet neighborhood streets. Children rode bicycles. People waved as they passed. Some stared at Rin. Most smiled. Nathan had already spoken with the neighborhood beforehand. Everyone knew a young alien would be arriving. Still, seeing one in person was different. A little girl waved shyly. Hi. Rin remembered his lessons. He waved carefully back. Hello. She grinned. Cool tail. Thank you. Nathan leaned over. You're making friends already. Eventually they reached a white fence surrounding a nearby house. Nathan stopped. Okay. I forgot to mention something. Rin tilted his head. What? A loud bark answered first. The cub jumped nearly half a meter into the air. The gate burst open. A massive golden retriever came charging across the yard. Tongue hanging out. Tail wagging wildly. Running directly toward Rin. Every instinct inside the young Dravik screamed. Unknown predator. Fast approach. Close distance. Too fast. Too close. His muscles tightened. His claws began to slide free. Then. Nathan's voice. Calm. Steady. Rin. The cub froze. Look at me. He did. Breathe. One breath. Good. What's our first rule? Rin swallowed. Words before instincts. Exactly. The dog reached them. Skidded to a stop. Then. Licked Rin directly across the nose. The cub stood perfectly still. His brain stopped working. The dog barked happily. Then sat down. Tail thumping against the grass. Rin slowly looked toward Nathan. It attacked me. Nathan blinked. No. It tasted me. It's saying hello. With saliva? Nathan nodded. Unfortunately. A woman walked over laughing. Sorry. Cooper gets excited. She clipped a leash onto the dog's collar. He's friendly. Rin stared at the enormous animal. Friendly? The golden retriever rolled onto his back, exposing his stomach, wagging harder. Nathan smiled. He wants belly rubs. Rin looked utterly confused. He is surrendering? The woman laughed. No. He's asking for affection. The cub blinked several times. This planet is deeply confusing. Nathan crouched beside Cooper. Watch. He scratched the dog's belly. Cooper made happy little noises. His tail wagged even faster. Rin leaned closer. So. He trusts you enough to expose the vulnerable part of his body? Nathan smiled proudly. Exactly. The cub considered that. Then slowly reached out. May I? The owner nodded. He'd love that. Rin carefully scratched the dog's belly with one claw. Cooper immediately leaned into the touch. Then rested his head against Rin's foreleg. The young Dravik froze again. He likes me. Nathan grinned. He does. For several minutes. Nothing happened. Just a dog enjoying attention. And a former predator cub discovering another impossible truth. Finally Rin asked. Nathan? Yeah. This creature. Could bite. Absolutely. It chooses not to. Most of the time. It trusts strangers. Nathan nodded. Because humans spent thousands of years earning that trust. Rin looked thoughtful. Like you earned mine. Nathan smiled. Something like that. On the walk home. Rin became unusually quiet. Nathan knew that look. The cub was thinking. Deeply. Finally he spoke. Humans changed wolves. We did. You changed me. Nathan looked over. I didn't change you. Rin frowned. You didn't? No. Nathan smiled gently. I just gave you a place where the best parts of you could grow. The cub walked silently beside him. Those words stayed with him. That afternoon. The neighborhood children gathered outside Nathan's house. Not because they had been invited. Because curiosity is universal. A small boy held up a soccer ball. Want to play? Rin looked toward Nathan. What do I say? Nathan shrugged. What do you want to say? The cub thought for a moment. Then smiled. Yes. The game lasted almost an hour. At first the children were cautious. Then. They forgot Rin was different. He laughed when they laughed. Cheered when someone scored. Apologized when his tail accidentally knocked over the goal. By the end. They were arguing about teams like children everywhere. Nathan watched from the porch beside Sarah. She smiled softly. You were like that. When? The first time you brought home an injured stray dog. Nathan laughed. I remember. You cried until we let you keep him. I was persuasive. You were impossible. As evening settled over the neighborhood. Rin sat on the front steps watching the sunset. Children waved goodbye as they went home. See you tomorrow. Bye, Rin. Bring the ball. The cub waved back. Then looked at Nathan. They weren't afraid. Nathan shook his head. No. They saw someone who wanted to play. Far above Earth. An observation vessel from the Galactic Council silently recorded everything. Inside, several officials watched the footage without speaking. One finally broke the silence. The children accepted him in less than 20 minutes. Another nodded slowly. They accepted him before the adults did. Administrator Tarek, attending remotely, smiled faintly. Humans often learn their best lessons from their youngest. The officials continued watching. On the screen, a former Hazard Class predator laughed as human children chased him across a grassy field. No fear. No barriers. No prejudice. Just childhood. And for the first time, several council members quietly wondered whether the future of the galaxy might not be decided by soldiers or politicians, but by children who had never learned to fear each other in the first place. For nearly a month, Earth became the most observed planet in the Galactic Council. Not because of its military, not because of its technology, but because one former predator cub was living an ordinary life. Every morning, Council observation satellites quietly recorded the same routine. Nathan making breakfast. Rin walking to school. Neighborhood children racing him to the playground. An elderly neighbor teaching him how to grow tomatoes. A veterinarian introducing him to rescued animals. Nothing extraordinary. Yet somehow, everything about it challenged centuries of galactic assumptions. The Council expected the experiment to fail. Surely there would be an incident. A fight. An accident. A relapse. Some proof that predators could never truly change. Instead, they watched something else happen. Every single day, Rin became kinder. More patient. More confident. Not because anyone forced him to. Because someone believed he could. One afternoon, Nathan arrived at Rin's school to pick him up. The cub bounded toward him carrying a stack of drawings. "I made these." Nathan smiled. "Can I see?" The first drawing showed the citadel. The second showed Earth. The third made Nathan stop walking. It was a picture of the day they first met. A frightened young Dravik. A bleeding human kneeling instead of standing. Above them, written in careful English letters. "This is when I got my second chance." Nathan swallowed hard. "I like it?" Rin asked nervously. Nathan knelt beside him. "I love it." That evening, an emergency transmission arrived from Administrator Tarek. His face appeared on the living room screen. "You both need to see this." Nathan immediately recognized the tone. "What happened?" Tarek smiled. "For once. Something good." He activated the transmission. A recording from the Galactic Council filled the screen. Councillor Menvar stood before representatives from more than 60 civilizations. His expression remained as serious as ever. Yet his words surprised everyone. "For generations, our policies have assumed that fear creates safety. We now possess overwhelming evidence that fear alone creates only distance." Images appeared behind him. Rin returning Nathan's dropped cloth. The market rescue. Children playing together on Earth. Predator and prey studying in the same classroom. Families from different species visiting each other. Menvar continued. "The Council therefore adopts the Asterian Initiative." Nathan blinked. "The what?" Tarek smiled. "They named it after the station." The presentation continued. Every juvenile classified solely by species would now receive individual behavioral assessment. Mixed species youth exchange programs would expand across Council space. Rehabilitation would take priority over permanent isolation. Guardian partnerships between compatible species would become legal throughout the galaxy. Nathan stared silently. Rin looked confused. Is that good? Nathan laughed softly. Buddy. It's history. Then came the final announcement. The first recipient of the Council Medal for Civic Transformation. Menvar paused. Is Ambassador Nathan Carter of Earth? Nathan immediately shook his head. No. Tarek smiled knowingly. I had the same reaction. Menvar continued. And juvenile Rin Varesa of the Dravik clans. The cub blinked. Me? Nathan smiled. You. I didn't do anything. Nathan looked at him warmly. You chose to become better. That's one of the hardest things anyone can do. A week later. Representatives from dozens of worlds arrived on Earth. Not for negotiations. For a ceremony. The park where Rin had first played soccer became the gathering place. Children from many species sat together on the grass. Adults stood behind them. No barriers. No security walls. No separate sections. Administrator Tarek walked onto the stage carrying 2 small boxes. He looked at Nathan. I dislike ceremonies. I know. I especially dislike emotional ceremonies. I know. They make paperwork sentimental. Nathan laughed. I know. Tarek opened the first box. Inside rested a silver medal bearing the symbol of the Galactic Council. He placed it around Nathan's neck. This honors courage. Nathan nodded gratefully. Then Tarek opened the second. A much smaller medal. Perfectly sized for a growing cub. He knelt before Rin. This honors growth. Rin accepted it carefully. Then looked up. Can I ask something? Tarek sighed dramatically. You've learned too much from humans. The crowd laughed. Rin smiled. Can this medal stay with the station someday? Tarek looked surprised. Why? So other scared kids can see it. The administrator closed his eyes briefly. Collecting himself. Then nodded. It will. After the ceremony. The park slowly emptied. Families lingered. Children continued playing. Nathan and Rin sat beneath a large maple tree. The cub looked at his medal. Nathan? Yeah. Do you remember when I asked if you were angry? Nathan smiled. I remember. I thought. Everyone would hate me forever. Nathan rested an arm around his shoulders. I know. Rin looked across the park. Children from 5 different worlds chased one another through the grass. Laughing. Completely unconcerned about who was predator. Or prey. They don't know. They don't know what? They don't know they're supposed to be afraid. Nathan smiled. Let's hope they never learn. Far across the galaxy. Schools began teaching a new history lesson. Not about a battle. Not about a treaty. But about a frightened cub. A patient human. And a single choice made in the first few seconds after a bite. History books would later summarize it simply. The Asterian initiative began because one human chose compassion over retaliation. But those who had actually been there. Administrator Tarek. Captain Drex. Dr. Eris. Handler Jess. They knew the truth was even simpler. It wasn't policy that changed the galaxy. It was love. Given to someone who believed they no longer deserved it. Epilogue, 10 years later. The training yard on Citadel Asterian looked very different now. Predator and prey children learned together. Laughed together. Made mistakes together. At the center of the yard stood a towering adult Dravik with midnight black scales. Across his collar gleamed the silver crest of both Earth and the Galactic Council. Instructor Rin Carter-Varesa. A small nervous predator hatchling accidentally knocked over another child during practice. The youngster immediately burst into tears. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Everyone froze. Except Rin. He walked over calmly. Knelt to the frightened child. And smiled. "It's okay. You got scared. You made a bad choice." He gently rested one claw on the youngster's shoulder. "That doesn't make you bad." The hatchling looked up through tearful eyes. "Really?" Rin smiled. "Really?" The words felt familiar. Because they weren't his. Years ago, a bleeding human had spoken those exact words to a frightened cub who believed his life was over. They had changed everything. Across the yard, an older man with streaks of gray in his hair watched proudly from a bench. Nathan smiled quietly. Some lessons were never meant to end with one generation. They were meant to be passed on. And somewhere among the stars, the galaxy finally understood the truth humans had known for thousands of years. The strongest thing in the universe is not fear. It is the courage to answer fear with kindness.